Brothers. So I want to talk a bit about lifespans. People seem to talk a lot about long lifespans. They want to have a long life. And frankly, I don't understand why, because the first thing we need to do is consider the quality of life and what we're trying to do. If you thought that maybe there isn't enough time for your goal, then yeah, maybe we should be looking for a really long life. It's rather famous in China that the Taoists, and especially the leaders and Confucians who want to use Taoism and the fantastic knowledge that is available in Chinese medicine to elongate their lives. Maybe it's because they don't believe in reincarnation. They're playing around with their bodies and trying to get as many highs as possible before what is, according to them, this big curtain going over and it's all over and you don't have any responsibility. And so for them, their goal is to just go after material pleasure for the longest possible time with the least number of consequences, with the least pain. And we cannot say that the yogis, always live longer than the regular people. We can only say that generally they do. Because what we do in our lifetime is to lift up our energies and create more energy from within. So we're busy here growing trees, and we're not busy here cutting them down and burning them and say, oh, how warm the fire is, because that's very temporary and it's not a good long-term practice. We are building up that energy, and that energy is what's lifting up your body. If you're interested about flotation, or how somebody could just start floating off of the floor, well, we're all floating right now. All of us are floating right now. We're carrying a very heavy dead body, and that's what our spirit is doing. A very dear friend of mine is a coroner, and is the father of another friend of mine, and he's a very, very strong man. He has to lift weights, and I think it's part of him relieving stress from seeing dead people, and also it helps him pick the dead people up. Now, this man how do you call that? You lift from the legs? The squats, yes. He squats 700 plus pounds. So he's a very, very strong man, and the reason for that is because they have to pick up these dead people. So the second that I die, the spirit will migrate, and the body, then the real weight of the body is something that we can see. This is something I think that atheists and materialistic scientists never bother to explain, and they try to ignore. How does the same person, 1 minute, they're, let's say, 62 kilograms, and the next minute they're 80 kilograms? And they didn't eat, they didn't add material to themselves. There's a lot of aspects of the spiritual aspect of the body that the doctors and so-called scientists are deliberately ignoring because it doesn't match their twisted and unusual worldview, and this is one of them. I mean, you start talking even about the heartbeat, like, well, that's electricity. Well, can we just plug me into a socket, or what electricity is that? And why is it when somebody dies, they say they always die, and the heart stops beating? They check to see if the heart's beating, or the brain, if the brain has waves or not. But people have come back from that. But scientists and doctors cannot bring people back with these electric currents, or coarse things that they're using, and it's because the soul is already gone. And Saint Teresa of Avila, she was gone without a heartbeat for around 2 weeks, I think, and then she came back because she decided to. Her father was calling her. Her grave was already dug, everything was ready, and everybody was calling her father crazy. because she had no heartbeat and she was certainly dead, as they said. Um, so you can't really pin it down to this electricity either. And you want to find what the soul is and what that nature is. And she would be also a good example of someone before, at that time, she had gone into samadhi and she decided she wanted to leave the world. So this is something also we notice in autobiography of a yogi, Yogananda. He decided to leave this world early. He decided he's finished with what he wants to do here. So why would you live past 60, 70, 80? And well, other monks and yogis, they find life enjoyable even though they're sick of society. They generally have a good routine going and they keep it going until they're very, very old, and they let themselves die fairly naturally when they're in pain. They can control the experience and they can control where this vibration goes. It's something they train and work for a long time. So generally yogis live to be a longer time, but yogis can choose to leave their bodies at an earlier age. Yogis can also be the victims of accidents, though I've never heard of such a thing, because generally we are protected by God, and we've had some pretty odd incidents happen where this protection has been very well displayed. I myself have escaped death many times. I was also the victim of a beating by 4 soldiers at once. I was knocked out, and immediately I just got up and I walked home with no cuts or bruises or broken bones or anything. My friends at the time thought it was a miracle. The police saw the video. They thought it was insane. But I was just fine. I was like a rubber band. It was like Gumby, I'm just relaxed in my justice of the moment, that I'm doing the right thing. I'm pushing for the right thing. And, because I'm going to be me, I want to realize Atman. I have my moksha. I'm going to be me. And I won't waste my life thinking about all the possible harms that might be done to me. If these harms come to me because of me being who I am, and particularly me standing up for social justice, then so be it. As our Chinese director friend said, you can't predict when these powers that be will come harass you, so you might as well not try to predict it. You might as well just be yourself and do what you think is right. And if something happens, just accept it. So we also have the story of Rastus going through the front of a car windshield. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and he went completely through the front windshield of a car, and he just walked straight home. Yeah, perfectly fine. So I think I get this impression built up from these incidents that we are indeed protected by God, and we won't just have some freak accident and die. That's my impression. Also something, you have good karma saved up from thousands of lifetimes. You can burn that away with drugs or burn that away in different ways. I just heard of an old lady. She lived to be 101 years old, and she was a meat eater. And I just made this video about vegetarianism, so I thought I should mention how you would explain that. Well, when you're sinning, you're always suffering. It's not an enjoyment to eat cadavers, to drink blood, to see dead eyes on your plate. It's not enjoyment, and it's a very negative vibration, and that would certainly reduce this person's vitality over time. So she must have had very good karma from previous lives that kept her physical body going for a long time. Living to 101 years old, was she really happy? If we asked her, did you attain your goals in life? Did you get anywhere specifically? I think she would probably already be regressing into a childlike state. She wouldn't have much to say. I don't think it's frankly all that useful for a person like that to live to 101 years old. And it's not really particularly our goal as yogis to just be using oxygen, wasting oxygen on the earth, and just sitting here without this purpose. So, anyway, again, yogis will live generally longer than everybody else. We will be generally protected by God. We do reserve the right to leave this earth whenever we please, and we prefer quality of life over quantity of life. Finally, the last thing concerning diet, there is a new video by Journeyman Pictures on YouTube. You can go watch it. It's called Long Life Village, about a village in southern China of largely vegetarians. They live on potatoes and corn, and they're all really old. So concerning maintaining the body, of course, using fresh foods and simple foods, and living in lower stress but in sharper intellect will definitely give you a better quality and often a better longevity in your life. So, amen and om.